Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 412. Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Saturday night. Hope you're all having a fantastic weekend so far. As for me, things have gone swimmingly. Nice and calm, easy weekend. Spent the whole day today in the kitchen, whipping up about 7 pounds of chicken parmesan to bring over to my parents. My girlfriend and I went over there, ate some food, hung out, watched both the Islanders and the Rangers lose, unfortunately, which is becoming quite a habit for the Rangers so far this year, but I won't get into all of that. We ate a bunch of chicken parmesan. We had some, obviously some macaroni, some meatballs, some sausage, and Carrie really likes this place called Crumble. So it's like this cookie joint. So she ordered some of these cookies, and I always tell her when she gets these things that I'm not going to eat any of them, they're too sweet for me, and then before you know it, I'm shoving about 5 of them down my bearded face. So I guess I should just stay away from those things because they obviously have some sort of heroin or crack cocaine or something like that in them. Because once I start eating them, I cannot stop. So we had those. My uncle cruised through. We had a tres leche cake that he brought over. And we just hung out all day and had a good time. And sometimes it's nice just to keep it real mellow, real chill, hang out with the family, and, just eat until you can't eat anymore. And for me, I enjoy cooking. So while I was cooking, I started listening to, but continued listening to an audiobook that I downloaded a couple of days ago. And it's the book called The Ritual. Now, I'm sure some of you have seen this movie on Netflix. They turned the book into a movie, and the movie's pretty good, right? If you saw the movie, then, you're like, oh, all right, yeah, that was a pretty good flick. But the book is 10 times better. I mean, it is way better. The tension, the way they build it all up, the infighting between the dudes on the camping trip, and then you splatter in a little bit of, mythology, Scandinavian mythology, and all sorts of other cool little things that the author Adam Neville did, and you have yourself quite a good book. And for me, when I'm out on those solo hiking adventures, I like to listen to books like that. It sets the ambience, right? A little bit of trepidation as you're on your own journey. So I was looking for something to fit the bill. And like I said, I had read watched the movie. So when I was, messing around looking for a book that was set in the outdoors, that had like a horror tilt, I was directed to this book by several different people who suggested it on different forums. So usually I will avoid grabbing a book that I've seen the movie to first, because I like to be surprised, right? I like some twists, some turns, and all of that stuff. But I had heard from these same forums that the book was nothing like the movie, and there was some different twists and turns, blah, blah, blah. Well, before I ran for too long, let's just say that they were spot on, and this is a fantastic book. I talked about The Terror a week and a half ago, and I finished that, and that book is epic too. I mean, Dan Simmons hit a home run with that book. But with The Ritual, it's kind of a different kind of horror book, right? More like occult. There's a lot of occult in it, and it's just creepy as F. So if you're looking for a book to read, or if you do audiobooks especially, I highly suggest picking up The Ritual. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I read a ton of books as well. And it's not very often where I'm listening to a book and I feel it in my soul like I did with The Ritual. Like, maybe it's because I hike a lot and I could totally feel what they were going through. Like, I had like a visceral reaction almost, because I could totally see what happened to them happening. But it was very disconcerting, the book. I won't say terrifying, because I don't know if since I've been an adult anyway, read or watched anything that's absolutely terrified me besides the news. But as far as like disconcerting and like uncomfortable and like, okay, what the hell? This definitely fit the bill and hit all of the levers. So if you're looking for quite a ride, I would definitely suggest The Ritual by Adam Neville. It's like an 11-hour listen, so I would guess probably a few hundred pages if you're going to read it. But either way, if you do check it out and listen to it or read it, let me know what you think. Send me some email or send me a message on Twitter or something and let me know what you think about it. And if you're going to pick it up, let me know as well. Let me know that you plan on reading it so that we could chat about it a little bit, because I'd like to see what other people's reactions are as far as the story itself. Very creative, in my opinion. So definitely, if you're going to check it out, let me know, and we'll BS a little bit about that. All right, so on to our article. You know, the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons is an absolute dumpster fire. Could it be any more pathetic what goes on within these organizations? Now, we know the Justice Department, the laws are absolutely backwards most of the time. They're rigged. The courts are all screwed up. So we know that. And unfortunately, if you're paying attention, you also know that the Bureau of Prisons is screwed up as well. I'm not even going to get into for-profit prisons or anything like that. That's in a different vein. But in general, the Bureau of Prisons is an absolute shit show. It should have been fixed a long time ago. When people go to prison, they should go there with the hope of some sort of to rehabilitate themselves. But that's not how it works, right? These people go to these prisons, and you go in there for one crime, and you come out of there, and you're an arch criminal. And the people who run these prisons are clowns for the most part. I hate to say it, but they're clowns. I'd say that a lot of the guards themselves are good people, right? And I'd say that a lot of the administrators are probably good people and they want to do the right thing. But the bosses, like in every single one of these other bureaucracies, are all seemingly up to no good. And the article we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to see that once again. The warden who took over at the MCC after the Epstein situation to clean things up, well, she's out now after about a year. After more allegations have come down, more people have brought a pointing finger towards the jail about the treatment of prisoners, contraband getting in there, all kinds of wild shit. And you mean to tell me that this is the best we can do with all of the money that gets pumped into the Bureau of Prisons? I mean, I want to say that they have like one of the largest budgets outside of the Defense Department. And this is the kind of quality and shit that we get. We need a complete overhaul. We need a complete audit, a complete overhaul, and we need to find a system that works. Because I don't know about you folks, but I'm tired of wasting money, just throwing it into a black hole and having people go to these jails, go to these prisons, never rehabilitate themselves, come out and then repeat the cycle over and over again while some dickbag hedge fund guy who's involved in these for-profit prisons continues to get rich. I'm tired of all of that jazz. So this needs to be overhauled. There needs to be a new system in place, some sort of accountability for these people in charge, not just stepping down. I mean, at the very least, if you're in charge of one of these shitholes that's being run, like the prison in that movie Midnight Express over in Turkey when the dude got caught for smuggling a hash or whatever. If you're running a facility like that in the United States of America, then you need to be held accountable for that. And that doesn't mean just retire. Maybe you lose your pension. And if there are criminal counts that you can be held accountable for, then that as well. But at the very least, they have to be made to know that if they don't run a tight ship, if they don't have all of their ducks in a row and their people doing the right thing, then they're going to feel the pain in the purse at the very least. Because unfortunately, it seems like a lot of these people who get these jobs are just in it to cruise through, get that pension, and move on. Because how could it be possible that all of these people that come through these places, all of these wardens in all of these prisons, are they all just completely moronic? Or is there a lot of greed that's going along with it as well? Again, I don't know. I don't have any, direct information pointing to that. But you know how these bureaucrats work. There's a lot of eating at the trough, a lot of wetting of the beak. And it might not be your usual, showing up with an envelope to bribe somebody or whatever. But there's other ways, right? You get this contract, you get that contract. I put in a word for you here, I put in a word for you there. I'm the warden, I'm the one who decides what food company comes in here. You get my drift? So we got to make sure that the people that in those positions are accountable. And if they get out of line, they have to be held accountable in a very transparent way so that the taxpayer can see how their tax dollars are being spent and they're not just being wasted while people like Jeffrey Epstein are being killed while in the custody of the United States government. Our article tonight is from the AP and the headline, Warden out after new allegations at embattled federal jail. This article was authored by Michael R. Sisak, Jim Mustian, and Michael Balsamo. The warden brought in to clean up the federal jail where Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, allegedly, has abruptly stepped down after a year-long tenure marred by the rampant spread of the coronavirus, inmates' complaints about squalid conditions, a smuggled gun, and an inmate's death. So, I'm willing to give them a pass on the coronavirus situation because how are you supposed to control that, right? What are you supposed to do? Put everybody in a fishbowl with an oxygen tube running into it and they can never take it off? So I can't really get too upset about the whole COVID situation there. Now, the squalid conditions, on the other hand, I guess that would depend. What are considered squalid conditions? You guys all know how I feel about this. I feel like the conditions in the jail should be livable conditions. Right? It's bad enough that, we have to put people in jail. Unfortunately, a lot of people have left society no choice. But at the same time, I think that a facility where everything's bad, the conditions are horrible, the guards are abusive, I don't think that does anyone any good, right? So I think it should be a professional environment with a set of rules, a set of guidelines that everybody has to follow, all of the guards. One federal prison shouldn't have its own way of doing things compared to another. Everything should have a unified code, and everyone should be held to a certain standard as far as guards, and especially for these bureaucrats that get these jobs, and then when shit goes south like this, they just step down. So there needs to be some sort of across-the-board regulation where each one of these prisons has to get on and get going with the same exact guidelines as the next one. Now, I'm talking about the federal prisons. State prisons are a little bit different, right? Each one's going to have its own needs and blah, blah, blah. But with the federal prisons, they can make it uniformed and make it very transparent so the people see exactly what's going on. And then we can understand where the money's being spent, how it's being spent, and all of that jazz. Because, folks, I'm not even messing around. We pump a lot of money into keeping people incarcerated in this country. And that definitely needs to be looked at. There needs to be serious prison reform in this country. No doubt about it. Marty Lecon Vitale, 54, quit the Metropolitan Correctional Center this week. Her abrupt departure came about a week after staff at the jail left an inmate, whose lawyer says he has the mental capacity of an 8-year-old child, in a holding cell for 24 hours while awaiting a competency evaluation, a violation of prison system regulations. Well, it should be a violation. I mean, this person has the capacity of an 8-year-old child. Get him in there, let's get a doctor to see him, and let's get it moving, right? I mean, again, just basic humanity is all I'm talking about here. I'm not saying they should have an Xbox in their cell. I'm not saying that they should be drinking, lattes and ordering pizzas. Of course not. They got to pay their debt to society. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. But that doesn't mean that the conditions shouldn't be humane, right? The conditions should always be humane, and it should be a professional atmosphere. Like any other job. These dudes who show up there as guards or whatever, they shouldn't be showing up with an axe to grind ever. They shouldn't look at these people as animals, none of it. They should look at them as, look, this is my job. I'm here to do a job. Unfortunately, you screwed up. You didn't follow the rules. So your job is to stay in that cell. But a lot of times we don't see that professionalism. And I think a lot of that starts at the top. If that's not coming down from your boss, if your boss is an absolute douche, like a lot of these people obviously are, then that's going to trickle down, right, to the people underneath him, to his supervisors, the managers, everybody, they take their lead from their boss. So I think a lot of the accountability comes from these bureaucrats, and unfortunately, we don't see any of that. I mean, stepping down. Why should this person step down? They should have been fired. Never mind stepping down. And in the last few weeks, a correctional officer at the facility had also reported sexual misconduct by a superior, which officials at the jail delayed reporting to Senior Bureau of Prisons officials, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. And again, why let this person, Marty Lecon Vitale, the warden who supposedly stepped down, why let them save face by saying they stepped down? Why not say, look, we fired them. They screwed up. They didn't do the right thing. Now we're holding them accountable. This is already the place where Epstein died. So I think it would behoove everybody for some accountability here. And when it always makes me shake my head when they let these people do the whole, oh yeah, well I've decided to step down, as if we don't know what that means. So if they step down, they still get their pension. One last attaboy on the back on the way out of the old I Want to Be Elites club. The people could not discuss that matter publicly and spoke to the Associated Press on a condition of anonymity. The man who was left in the holding cell, Richard Quinn, 26, made friends with mice during the agonizing wait, his attorney Peter Brill said. He said the top officials at the jail had failed to report the violation to their superiors at the Bureau of Prisons. Doesn't shock me one bit. This is the same place where we had people falling asleep. And what, we think that was the first time? When those guards fell asleep while they're supposed to be watching Jeffrey Epstein, that's the first time it's ever happened, huh? Just so happens the first time these people decide to nap, Epstein's clipped. Come on. It's something that happened there all the time, and I'm sure it wasn't just them. I'm sure it was something everybody was up to, and I'm sure that their bosses even knew, and their bosses probably just shook their head about it. Oh, that's just the way those guys do it. So, like I said from the jump, I think that whoever the bosses were who were on duty that night, supervisors, manager on duty, all of them, if the guards got arrested and they got fired, then these people should all be arrested and fired too. And don't even get me started on the people who are in charge of the video. The cameras are pointed at the wrong cell. They lost evidence. Who's in charge of the chain of custody? How come that person has never been held responsible? It's almost like they don't care, or like they're bullshitting us. The Bureau of Prisons would not directly address the allegations, but in a statement, the agency said it was committed to ensuring the safety and humane treatment of all inmates in our population, our staff, and the public, adding that allegations of staff misconduct are thoroughly investigated and appropriate action is taken if such allegations are proven true, including the possibility of referral for criminal prosecution when appropriate. So I guess it's never appropriate unless you're just the two guards who fell asleep that night. I guess that's the only time it's appropriate, because it certainly should be appropriate for their bosses. And what about the people in charge of this stuff over here, right? This lady who is stepping down, she's in charge of the whole shebang. She's the boss. She's the warden. She's the big cheese. So when stuff goes south, she has to be the one that's held responsible. And if that is not criminally possible, right? She didn't do anything that's criminal, then she has to be held responsible by losing her pension, a portion of her pension, something. But there needs to be repercussions for these people in these high profile, very important jobs. You know, it's not, these people aren't just showing up and, you know, they can't just show up and be on autopilot. These are serious jobs that have serious repercussions throughout society. So we need serious people in these positions, people that are trustworthy. The agency said its employees are required to refrain from harassing conduct and that employees receive training to detect and prevent inappropriate behavior, not only with other staff, but also with inmates. All right, look, I don't know how many times people have to tell people this, but leave other people alone in the workplace especially. What is wrong with you? These people that go to work and harass their coworkers, I just never understood it. Are you that dense? And at the Bureau of Prisons, you times it by tenfold, right? If these dudes working in the female correctional center, I've heard some really disgusting, wild stories about what occurs with some of these people. So, again, we need to make sure that the people that are being employed by the Bureau of Prisons are good quality folks. And if that means we got to bump up the pay a little bit, then so be it. Now, obviously, there's always going to be some weirdos, some psychos that fall through the crack no matter what you do. So what you try and, do is weed out as many of them as possible by having a good benefit package, good pay, making sure that, the people are taken care of. But that's not what we see going on, right? I mean, I think the pay's decent, but, look, there has to be incentives if you want people who are going to do these jobs. And let's face it, who wants to go and spend 8 hours a day working in a jail, right? I can't see myself doing that. There's probably zero chance for me to ever want to do something like that. But if I did, I'd want to be taken care of, financially compensated correctly. So maybe that's an option. Bump up the pay, and perhaps that brings in more quality people who are less inclined to act the fool. In a statement, the Bureau of Prisons said Lincoln Vitale has announced her retirement, and an interim warden has been assigned until a new warden is appointed. The interim leader is listed in court papers as Eric Williams. He will be the fourth warden at the New York City lockup in 18 months. and the third person put in charge since a shakeup following Epstein's August 2019 death. Now imagine that. Think of that. 18 months, 4 people. 4 people in 18 months. Not a great track record. Not a great track record of people in this very important leadership role. And I wonder why. Why is it that they can't find somebody who is of quality character, somebody who is respected enough to come in here and clean this up? I'll tell you why, because it's systemic. It comes from all the way from the top. This fish stinks from the head. All the way up from the Department of Justice, rotting all the way down into the Bureau of Prisons, and all the way down into the lower chambers of that organization. These people, I'll tell you, they're really just abhorrent at what they do. The whole entire Department of Justice is just mind-bogglingly bad, in my opinion. Messages seeking comment were sent to Lincoln Vitale. Lincoln Vitale, the former head of the federal prison in Danbury, Connecticut, was appointed warden of the Metropolitan Correctional Center, which had been billed as one of the most secure jails in America, in January of 2020. She took over from an interim warden who replaced Lamine Nadai, the warden in charge at the time of Epstein's suicide, allegedly, who was transferred to another job in the agency. And imagine that. Imagine you were at your job, right? You were this warden, and Epstein dies on your watch, and you just get transferred to a different joint. You don't get fired. I know a lot of you out there have management jobs, and you're just shaking your head right now because of the accountability factor. In the private sector, there is all sorts of accountability. If you're a supervisor or above, you better believe that you're going to be accountable for shit you've never done. Stuff you're not even responsible for. But if your employees do it, well, you're now responsible for it via proxy. You're the boss, right? Take some responsibility for the project. But not here. You just get transferred on out. What is this, the Catholic Church? Epstein's death a month after his arrest on child sex trafficking charges has been a lingering shadow over the 600-inmate facility in Lower Manhattan. The Justice Department's Inspector General has yet to complete an investigation into lapses that allowed the disgraced financier, pedophile, to end his life. 2 correctional officers responsible for monitoring him that night are awaiting trial on charges they lied on prison records because they were sleeping and browsing the internet instead of doing their jobs. So again, the prison guards, they're going to be the scapegoats, huh? The warden gets transferred, but the prison guards, they're facing felonies right now. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to take up for the guards here. They deserve to be punished as well. But should they be the only ones that are punished? Why is it always the low man on the totem pole? Why is it always the low person on the totem pole? This ridiculous nonsense where the bosses, the superiors, don't take any responsibility, at the federal level, it has to end. It really has to end. Lincoln Vitale faced an immense challenge in trying to turn the facility around, hampered by issues such as the coronavirus pandemic and contraband smuggling, as well as staffing shortages and dwindling supplies early in the pandemic. Now, again, I can't blame her for that. The pandemic stuff is, nobody knows really what to do with this shit. It's wild, right? Nobody knows how to react, what to do. There's no playbook. You can't go onto the company website and type in, what do I do when there's a coronavirus pandemic? Everyone was playing it by ear, going by the skin of their teeth. Nobody knew what the deal was, so can't really hold that against her. But when it comes to staffing shortages, hell yeah, I'm holding that against her. At the very least, Did she put in for more staff and was she turned down? And if she was, who turned her down? The person who said no should be accountable. See where I'm going with this? The accountability stuff? You know, the stuff that you and I learned in kindergarten? Seems that these people, well, they can't even spell it. In March, just before the pandemic prompted federal prisons to halt visitation, the jail went on a week-long lockdown after officials got a tip that a gun may have been smuggled inside. Investigators found a handgun and turned up other banned items such as cell phones, narcotics, and homemade weapons, sparking an ongoing criminal probe into guard misconduct. And again, that's great. If you're one of these guards that's smuggling shit in there, like this is Orange is the New Black and you're hanging out over at Litchfield, well, you should be penalized to the fullest extent of the law. You should be stripped of whatever kind of badge that the correctional officers have, and you should trade your police uniform for a federal jumpsuit. Accountability. After the gun was discovered, then Attorney General William Darth Barr also launched a Justice Department task force to address criminal misconduct by officers at several correctional facilities. Boy, Darth Barr really loved to launch investigations, huh? I wonder why he never launched an investigation into Mnuchin. Should probably launch an investigation into himself while we're at it. As the coronavirus took hold, Metropolitan Correctional Center employees weren't able to get masks, while staff restrooms ran out of soap. Workers in charge of refilling the dispensers were pressed into duty as correctional officers because of staffing shortages. Early in the crisis, more than 25% of staff positions were vacant. I mean, what? How's that even possible? This is the United States federal government, folks. They don't have an on-call board? You mean to tell me y'all ain't got no on-call board? So that's something you could fix right away. Sure, there's plenty of people that could use an on-call gig. A few 5 shifts a month for some people. Put them right over the edge. So we don't have an on-call board? Why are you down 25% of staff? As a manager, your job is to make sure that shit is staffed. And if that means you have to have some sort of budget fight with whoever you have to have it with, then so be it. But 25% of staff positions were vacant. It's the federal government paying the dime. They have no problem paying for people to be in prison. They should be able to pay for the people watching them. In May, a court-authorized inspection found that inmates with coronavirus symptoms were neglected and ignored, and social distancing was almost non-existent, with some inmates sleeping on bunks within arm's reach of each other. And this is why it's so important that Maxwell is in solitary confinement, that she's in the SHU, because none of that shit's happening. She's by herself in there, living her fantastic life, the bologna sandwich life. In a deposition, Licken Vitale said isolating ill inmates in the jail's special housing unit took priority, even as she agreed that conditions in that part of the jail were worse than in regular cells. Lawyers complained that sick inmates were being made to lie on concrete beds and weren't given sheets, blankets, or pillows. It's ridiculous. That kind of shit is ridiculous. Like I've said 100 million times, humane behavior and humane treatment is a staple, right? As much as it feels good to see some scumbag murderer maybe be treated like crap, the idea is not to be part of that, right? Not to drop to that level. So humane treatment in these jails is a must, in my opinion. And with all of the tax dollars being spent on this shit, you would think that at the very least they would have it humane. Complaints about conditions haven't abated. Defense lawyer Sabrina Schroff wrote to a judge last week about a client being kept in barbaric and inhumane conditions in solitary confinement at the jail. Schroff said her client, former CIA software engineer Joshua Schulte, who was made to live in a cell the size of a parking space that is infested with rodents, rodent dropping, cockroaches and mold, and lacks heating, air conditioning, or functioning plumbing as he awaits trial on charges he leaked government secrets to WikiLeaks. So, because he might have allegedly leaked some secrets to WikiLeaks, he should live in those conditions? Rodent droppings, cockroaches, and mold? I don't get it. I don't know how anyone could say, yeah, that's cool, no big deal. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed. As of Thursday, there was just one inmate and 13 employees sick with the virus at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, according to the Bureau of Prisons. No deaths have been reported at the jail as a result of the disease. Well, how bad could it have been in there? Again, we got to remember that there's always two sides of the story, right? There's the side of the Bureau of Prisons, and then there's the side of the story from the lawyers. And the lawyers are always going to want to paint a picture that their clients are being absolutely mistreated, without a doubt mistreated. And the government is going to want to paint the opposite picture. So remember, we always got to meet somewhere in the middle with this stuff and know that both sides are spinning a narrative. The death of inmate Tony McClam in September was not related to the coronavirus, the Bureau of Prisons said, though what happened to him remains unexplained. McClam, who was facing drug charges, was found unresponsive just 2 days after arriving at the facility and could not be saved, the Bureau said. A lawyer for his family said they were still awaiting the results of his autopsy, but that he had complained of medical issues and didn't receive the appropriate medical attention before his death. Look, I don't know anything about that story, so I'm not even going to comment on it. But I know that if it was one of my loved ones or someone I cared about in one of these prisons, I'd want professionals taking care of them. People that are there to do a job, not to have an axe to grind, not to browse around on the internet, and certainly not to let them live in a place with rodents and rats and all of that jazz. I think that if we let ourselves start doing stuff like that, then as a society as a whole, we're just screwed in general. But when it comes to this facility that Epstein was in, let's remember, as bad as it is, folks, it's not like there has been a bunch of deaths here, a bunch of suicides, any of that stuff. So let's not let them run a narrative like, oh, well, Jeffrey Epstein dying here, well, that was just to be expected, because it wasn't, okay? A very rare occurrence. And the Bureau of Prisons, the Department of Justice, and everybody who was involved, as far as bosses on down, all of them need to be held responsible. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. And remember, folks, tomorrow, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll be doing the live stream once again. So you'll also be able to find that link in the description box. All right, folks. I will see you tomorrow, and we will talk some more during the live stream. I hope you all have a fantastic night, and if you're out, please do not drink and drive.